Singapore, also known as the Lion City, is that a place that you should consider spending the next couple of your life in? Ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking to study abroad, Singapore can be a very attractive destination. Now, why is that? Number one, Singapore has some of the best universities in the world. You've heard of NTU, you've heard of NUS, there's plenty more. On top of that, did you know that Singapore has a tuition grant scheme in place, which means that your tuition, 30 to 80% of your tuition, can just be waived off directly. The government takes it away. Now, there's a catch, and the catch is that you have to work in Singapore 3 years after your degree is finished, but that's not really a problem for us, is it now? The next thing, Singapore is a relatively affordable destination if you compare it to countries like the US. There's English medium education, so you won't face any issues with learning a different language. You can work part-time as a student, 16 hours per week would be the time that you're allowed to work. And finally, if you are from Asia, if you're watching this from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, anywhere, Singapore is close to home. That means you don't have to fly off far away, which makes it easier. It's cheaper to travel. It's easier to just come back home if you need to. There's a lot of pros of that as well. Now, if all of this is so great, why doesn't the whole world go on to Singapore to study, right? Now, there are some cons as well, but to me, the major con is that getting PR in Singapore is very difficult nowadays. Depends on your nationality. If you're Indian, it's very difficult, and it's not the same as it used to be a decade ago. But they will advertise it as it is easy. But I'll show you proof later on in this video. I'll show you a real example of a real person who has been struggling, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, I think, more out there. Some of the best universities in Singapore, and I know the first two you would have already heard the names of because they are the top universities all over the world. So the first one, National University of Singapore, amazing place to study. Second one would be National Technological University of Singapore. Both of these are extremely popular, but did you know there's many other schools just like these with top-notch education in Singapore, such as the Singapore University of Technology and Design. You can go for this particular university as well. If you're interested in management, you can look at Singapore Management University, and there's dozens of other decent universities out there. Let's talk about the intakes in Singapore. So if you want to study, when do you start? What are the deadlines? We're going to be talking about that. So the biggest intake would be the fall intake, which is somewhere around August or September. That's really where you start your education. This is very well in line with the rest of the world. So again, it's very convenient to go for this one. And if you are planning to apply, the deadlines are usually around December to January. So make sure that you apply well in advance. The second biggest intake here is the January intake or the spring intake. Now, of course, it starts in January. It's the second biggest. But of course, keep in mind that not a lot of universities will accept spring intake. They may not have it for all the programs. Maybe just certain very popular programs might have the spring intake active, but more or less it's all about the fall. Best courses to study in Singapore if you are thinking of studying there. Number one on my list is computing and IT courses. This includes machine learning, data science, AI, everything. The next would be business. If you're hoping to study business, Singapore has a proven record that you can actually rely upon. Number three would be healthcare. Singapore is very well advanced, even though it's an island country, and I would personally not think twice if I had to study healthcare in Singapore. There's other fields, banking and finance, other fields of engineering, law, architecture, all of these are good courses to take if you're planning to study in Singapore. Now, if you're planning on studying there, one of the biggest things to consider is the costs. What kind of tuition fees, at least, you're going to be paying. Let's not talk about all kinds of fees, but tuition is the biggest expense. So if you're going for a bachelor's degree, expect to pay somewhere between 25,000 to 42,000 Singapore dollars. If you're going for a master's degree, it's a bit costlier. That's 30,000 to 62,000, again, Singapore dollars. But if you compare all of this with rates in, let's say, the US, it's way cheaper. And finally, if you're going for a PhD, my friend, I always say this in all of my videos, a PhD is not a PhD if you're paying for it. So you should be paid for it, it should be fully funded, and on top of that, you should be making some more to cover your living expenses as well. Remember that these fees and deadlines, they keep on changing and they vary based on the program. So you can very easily keep a track of those and check the most up-to-date ones for your favorite universities in Singapore on YMGrad.com. It's very easy, and again, it'll keep you up to date. Also, if you sign up on YMGrad, what you will be able to do is you'll be able to access a community of people who have already studied there, so you can even chat with them, you can check out their resumes, and you can understand what kind of universities your profile can get into, and it's all free. Let's talk about the language tests you need to be taking if you are going to be studying in Singapore. So most of the universities will demand that you prove your English level proficiency, that you're able to basically understand, speak, read, write in English. And the way to do that would be one of these common English language tests that are commonly accepted in Singapore. And to me, the test would be IELTS, TOEFL, and PTE in that order. So take one of these tests and you should be good to go. Remember that plans and crash courses for these are already available on this very YouTube channel, so you can actually prepare for these tests seamlessly by just following some of my videos. Let's move on to the application process. How do you apply to universities in Singapore if you're interested? The entire application process is online, you don't need to worry, but the most important part is to shortlist the right universities. If you shortlist the wrong universities, you may end up essentially targeting wrong universities from the very beginning. And what that means is that you may not get the end result that you've been looking for from the very start, right? So this could potentially mean getting into a bad university when your profile could get into a good university, right? So you need to know what kind of students have been previously accepted in good universities to be able to evaluate your profile, right? And similarly, there's many other things. You may not be eligible for certain scholarships, this, that, simply because you did not research right. So make sure you shortlist them right, and if you need any help, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp. Second thing, you need to meet the minimum requirements. These minimum requirements may be posed in the form of CGPA. You must have 75% and above in high school or in bachelor's, whatever, right? Whatever the requirements are, you have to fulfill them. Requirements may be posed on standardized tests. You may have to take the GRE, GMAT in certain cases. You may also have tests like the TOEFL, IELTS, PTE, where you may have to get a minimum score to be able to qualify to study in one of the universities. And that's very common. Finally, you will need to submit an SA or an SOP, that's your statement of purpose, telling the university why you would like to study over there. And of course, this is really the one and only opportunity you get to connect with the admissions committee. If you fail here, chances are even with a good profile, you may not be able to make it to the university. So if you need help getting the perfect SOP, reach out to me on WhatsApp, because what we can do is we can connect you to some of the Ivy League graduates who have already made it to topmost universities worldwide, and they will help you with your drafting. Remember, ChatGPT is the wrong way to go, or any other AI software, because they'll detect it like that and throw your application out. Finally, you need to fill an online application. Like I said, all of these documents, all of these scores, everything needs to be submitted in an online application per university, and you may have to pay an application fee. Most of the times, if you're applying independently, you will be paying it. If you're applying with us, for instance, we'll be getting it waived for you from many of the universities. And again, if you need help on that front, you can WhatsApp me. Coming to one of the final portions of this video, post-study work visa. What happens after you have invested the amount, after you've gained the education? Now is the time that you go ahead for your return on investment. That's what you asked for at this point, right? And that's really what it's all about in the end. So there's two kinds of institutions actually if you go forward with studying in Singapore. The first kind is the Institute of Higher Learning, IHLs. Now, these are the good universities. You want to get into an IHL. In fact, all the universities that I named in this video and the universities on our website as well, if you search for universities in Singapore, all of them are IHLs, because we want you to go into a good, decent university only. Now, if you are in an IHL, you will get a 1 year duration after your degree to search a job. That's a lot. 1 year, you can apply to hundreds of places. However, if you get into the university kind 2, which is a private institution, you only get 3 months. And this is where the biggest scam happens. If consultants send you to these kinds of universities, at the end of the day, it's not really helping you out. Remember, best ones are IHLs, but if you don't get a job even after going there, and let's say you have only 3 months or 1 year, whatever it is, right, you can convert your visa to a long-term visitor pass, which allows you to stay in Singapore and search jobs for 2 years. Now, in the beginning of this video, I told you that permanent residence in Singapore can be tough. Why? Well, times have changed. Look at the review of this person on Quora, and I've found dozens more where you will actually realize, and we've connected with students that we have sent as well. We've connected with students on LinkedIn, we've done a lot of research, but at the end of the day, look at reviews like this. This really makes me sad. This person spent 10 years in Singapore. They are married to a Singaporean person, a local person who holds a Singaporean passport. They have a good degree, they are earning a good income, and they have their own house. But they are not able to stay in Singapore. Their PR application keeps on getting denied. So remember, times certainly have changed, but at the end of the day, if you are going there to work, if you're going there to study and then work, it's still a good deal. You'll make a good amount of money at the end of the day, and you'll improve your life. Before we end, I want to tell you about some of the salaries of popular professions so you can kind of get the ballpark of what you'll be earning. Now, a software developer in Singapore would be earning somewhere around 71,000 Singapore dollars. That's per year. A dentist, on the other hand, is somewhere around 81,000 Singapore dollars per year, whereas an accountant would be somewhere around 60,000 Singapore dollars per annum. Now remember, these salaries are industry averages. Depending on your experience, the exact salary level will vary. Now, at the end of the day, after watching this, you may have a lot of questions in your mind, and I want to answer those questions. So reach out to me on WhatsApp if you need help. Connect with me on Instagram. Again, over there as well, I'm quite active and I'd be happy to help. There's a lot more content just like this that you'd find over there. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you like this video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and take care until then.